Have you ever asked yourself if art can change the world? We're asking you big questions here today in Hyderabad. Could a painting put an end to wars? Can a sculpture change the way people think? As a practicing artist from Lebanon, I ask myself these questions every day. I come from a part of the world that's often associated to violence and hostility. Growing up between Nigeria and Lebanon, I received daily exposure to racism, poverty, and of course, wars. However, when I was around 12 years old, my mother took me on a trip to Italy. We went to Rome, ate gelato, went shopping, and then she took me to the Vatican. And there, I came face to face with Michelangelo's Pietà. You know the saying, time stood still? Something very profound happened that day. I connected the sadness of the Madonna's face to all the injustices I had witnessed growing up. I realized three things that day: that suffering was indeed universal, that I wanted to become an artist, and that I wanted to use art and love to ease the suffering of the world. I believe that love is the essence, the force of the creative, universal, cosmic mind that moves the universal soul, providing a pathway to the divine that exists within each and every one of us. To put it simply, we are love. The spiritual dimension of love that connects everything that ever was and ever will be. Is it possible to create art that provokes through love? Can we simply strip the violence away? Living in Beirut, I see my work as a byproduct of political and economic turmoil, focusing on issues of violence, gender, religion, and their place in our bubblegum culture today. I'm trying to expose the superficialities of war, creating alternate realities, aiming to transcend boundaries and build bridges towards common grounds amongst different faiths, cultures, and traditions. The markets of Lagos encouraged me to look to the streets for inspiration and solutions. I feel that in order to talk about the issues that we're dealing with today, I have to use materials that reflect my present time and space. So everything from plastic guns to artificial flowers. Consumerism and war, they are one and the same. The plastic I use in my paintings is made from oil. The same oil mankind is at war for. This is a performance that I do from time to time. It's called the Pink Bride of Peace. I wear a great big pink wedding dress and run around the streets of Beirut, passing out flowers and hugs to hundreds of people, all in the name of peace and love. I've done this performance throughout several cities in Lebanon, and I found that sometimes all it takes is a very simple gesture for people to shed their differences and come together. This is most present during the Beirut International Marathon, the one day of the year where thousands of Lebanese come together to run in unity in order to help heal our war-torn country. As the Pink Bride of Peace, I've participated in the 10K fun run, not the marathon, the 10K, since the inception of the marathon 13 years ago. And guys, the great news is, 13 years on, my dress size has not changed. So this is a sculpture I created that attempts to bring people together, Today, so many wars are being fought under the name of Allah, God. Yet they have nothing to do with God. What I observed in post-Civil War Beirut of the 90s is that people were healing through dance. In nightclubs, nobody cared anymore what race or religion you were. People just wanted to dance. So I created this 4 by 4 meter sculpture. It says Allah, God. It's covered in mirror tiles, and as it rotates, light is reflected on it, music accompanies it, and you're invited to dance rather than fight under the light of God. To remember what brings us together. To remember what brings us together in an act similar to whirling dervishes. This was a major turning point in my work as it began a journey inwards. In this next body of work, I went home, but I don't have a home that still exists from my childhood because both my parents' houses were destroyed in 2 separate wars in Lebanon. My father is from the south, and our home there was occupied by the Israeli army for 22 years. They appropriated our house and turned it into a military and detention center where villagers were systematically interrogated and tortured. I never got to go home. I never got to see this house until the year 2000. That's when the south of Lebanon was liberated. I took these photos then to document the occupation. These are blast walls and sniper posts that were left there. With the new work, I began to investigate the idea of personal freedom and intimate space being taken away by force. There I was, in the middle of all this destruction, searching for home. In a painful process of painting and sculpting on site, all I found was anger, feelings of betrayal and pain. A lot of pain. How could they do this to us? To our home, to our memories, to our privacy, invading and violating what was most sacred, our home. The anger was consuming. But in that storm, I heard a quiet voice, and it said, "Let go. You can't change the past." And the more I listened to this voice, the louder it got. Love. Let it fill you. Let go. Forgive. Forgive. Love. Let it fill you. Love. I accepted the pain. I even let it become a part of me. Acknowledged. Respected. And then when I was ready, I let it go. The new paintings began with an act of purging. I wore a burial shroud, and I set fire to the white veils worn by the women of my region. From the residual carbon ashes, I created a black ink that metaphorically investigates the absence of light. This process of burning and creating art was an allegory of reincarnation, the core belief of the people of my traditional and cultural background, the Druze. I dipped some of these veils, some more veils, into the ash ink, and then I placed them on my heart. And then I made contact with the canvas on the floor. Every mark is where my heart touched the canvas, so essentially it was my heart that was painting. I realized then that violence is the product of fear. And once that fear is removed, there can only be love. The house was teaching me beautiful lessons. Moving outdoors, I began to transfer the chronicles of the land and earth. By placing the canvases outside, I would strike them again with veils hard enough in order to bring up the imprint of the earth below, yet gentle enough to leave traces of the veils from above. This process was physically grueling and demanding, but it was also a dance of love. The meditative and repetitive actions connected my place in the universe to the violence that the land had endured. In a final act, I embroidered sacred text and Arabic poetry, a reference to the cosmic thread that binds us all, placing the works into the larger context of humanity. Not too long ago, I found myself in Italy again, this time to exhibit my work. Along with the sculptures and paintings, I also shipped out these 2 blast walls that the Israeli army had left in our home. They weighed around 3 tons. If a house could serve to be a witness, couldn't objects do the same thing? There are museums all around the world dedicated to telling the stories of wars and civilizations. There are objects or artifacts in these museums that help us better understand these histories. We don't have a space dedicated to telling the story of the contemporary Arab people and the wars that we are enduring today. My dream is to create such a space where art could be a vehicle for establishing peace in the region. I had to start somewhere. So I started with myself, my family history. In the understanding of collective consciousness, my pain is your pain. Our wars are your wars too. The Middle East is experiencing a slow and brutal death. The destruction of an entire region, and this greatest loss of human potential is your loss too. From fire, we can create life. From destruction, we rebuild and create hope. If stars destroy themselves, then maybe it's only natural for us to do the same, obeying the laws of the universe. Is it possible, and how? How can we create a visual language that both acknowledges what might be so fundamentally inherent in us, our tendency towards violence, but that also celebrates our most beautiful and truest potential as humans, our free will, our aspirations, our dreams? We always have a choice. If violence begets violence, what could love do? So, to return to my question, I'm not entirely sure if art can change or save the world or even create peace. I do know that it can change us on an individual level. That fateful day in Rome, and under the grace of the Madonna, I felt saved. A painting may simply hang on a wall, but the powerful message behind it could potentially tap into the universal mind, maybe just enough to remind us that we are indeed all connected, all one. Every ant and every whale, every leaf and every star, every explosion above our heads, every birth and every death in the cosmos. This incredible planet called Earth, this phenomenal universe, this fabric we all come from, this enigma called love, this is what guides my heart and motivates my choices, my free will to pick up the brush or the veil and start painting. Thank you.